Now that I've got the service manuals for this 1996 Buick Roadmaster, there's tons of information in here. I can go ahead and carry on with the preventive maintenance on this thing with knowledge of all the fastening specifications, the torque specifications, and all that kind of thing. And I've got the car sitting up on jack stands with the rear suspension of full rebound. And that's because today I'm going to go ahead and change the rear axle fluid. I don't think it's ever been done on this car. And it's not too hard of a job. You're going to need a 1/2-inch socket to loosen all the bolts around the cover, as well as a 3/8-inch extension to check the fill plug. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and check to make sure that I can get the fill plug out. I've already taken some compressed air and I want a horsehair brush, brushed all around the outside of the cover there to make sure that when the cover is pulled away that this light rust and everything doesn't get all over the ring gear and everything. And on this car, the fill plug is right there, and it does not look like it's ever been taken out at all, so I don't think that this fluid has ever been changed, nor has it ever been checked. This differential is not giving me any problems at all, but I think that after 118,000 miles, or 113,000 actually, I want to go ahead and change this and do a complete job. First thing I want to do is make sure I can get that out, and then once I do, I want to see what the level is. The fluid level should be just right there, right at the upper edge of that lower portion of the plug there. And changing it, the manual actually recommends for limited slip actually to change it after the first 7,500 miles, and I don't think that's ever been done. So let me go ahead and use my extension, and since that plug has never been out, I'm going to go ahead and use a 1/2-inch drive for it and a breaker bar, because I think that thing's going to be tight, and then we'll see what we got after that. Well, good news there, the plug was tight, but the breaker bar did the job, and I just did the rest with the regular socket wrench, and as you can see, gear oil actually started flowing out, which is a really good sign that this axle has not run low on lubricant. Or maybe they really were topping it up and there just wasn't enough witness marks around there to make sure that it was never undone before. So that's a very good sign that this axle has never run dry on lubricant. And now I know I can fill it up. So now it's time to take the 1/2-inch socket and go all the way around and loosen these bolts, being careful to take this identification tag off and put it in the same position when it came off. And I'll leave the very top bolt up here to kind of control the cover once it comes off. That way it's not going to spill gear oil all over the place. So next thing to do is to loosen all these, take a screwdriver and pry the cover away and start draining the oil out of it. Okay, all the bolts are out except for one here and one on the other side. I loosened and removed the top bolt just to get this brake cable out of the way. And as you can see, oil's already starting to drain out quite nicely. I'm going to let it flow just a little bit like that before I take a screwdriver and pry the cover all the way off, because what I want to do is collect a sample, and that'll give me further evidence as to how this car was actually driven, since this oil was never changed. Okay, now that I've got a nice sample over there ready to send off for analysis, I can go ahead and let all hell break loose, crack this cover open. Very controlled. There it goes. That's all there is to it. It's a kind of a messy job. You want to make sure you have a pretty sizable drain pan. But you can be neat about it, and having the two bolts up here remaining really make it easy to control the chaos. So most of the oil is already out of here. I can go ahead and take the cover off and begin the long chore of cleaning all the gasket surfaces and cleaning any kind of buildup out of here. We'll get this cover off and see what kind of deposits we have in here and see how hot this thing's been running or not. All I can say is, wow, I'm very impressed. I have changed a lot of differentials before, and I've never seen a setup like this where they actually were thoughtful enough to put a magnet in here, just like they do for automatic transmissions. I did kind of feel a dimple on the back of the cover right there, and I thought, well, maybe that got hit by a rock or something like that, and, you know, oh well, no big deal. But that dimple is actually to locate the magnet. And that's really good engineering right there. It's I'm very impressed with that. I don't see that on the Ford 8.8. And looking at that magnet, it does look like it never has been cleaned. And there's not really a whole lot of buildup up on there of iron particles or anything. A little bit of particles down in there. You can see where the fluid line was, right about there. But there's not a lot of buildup on this thing for 18 or 19 years and 113,000 miles. Not at all. I'm also impressed with the fact that they don't appear to have used the good old RTV stuff. This looks like a regular gasket to me, which makes it a lot easier to get off of here in one piece with a razor blade, and a lot quicker for the job. So I'm encouraged by the condition of what I see. I'm also encouraged by the fact there's a magnet in here that's going to reduce all the wear going on inside the gear train there. I'm going to clean this up with paper towels and brake cleaner. Now we can look and see what the axle itself looks like. This axle is looks kind of different than most because it's a limited slip rear end made by Auburn Gear. I'm gonna stick my hand in and get all the fluid out of here. It looks like the gasket mating surfaces are already clean, which is nice because I don't have to do a lot of scraping and run the risk of getting all kinds of debris into the ring and pinion there. From what I can tell, I can't get the camera too close, but from what I can tell, not a lot of wear on those teeth, which is good. Just the usual amount of sludge buildup on the bearing caps. Clean that off real good. I'll have to get a light in there and check all the clutches for the limited slip. But so far, very encouraging. Time to clean things up and get some new oil in there. Okay, the old gasket down there came off largely in one piece, and it's kind of interesting GM used a gasket because most of the differentials I've seen have just used some form of heavy-duty RTV. And I got the differential cover all cleaned up just using a razor blade, scraped all the gasket material off of there. Got that magnet as clean as I could, just used some compressed air to blow off a lot of the debris that was on there after wiping it down real good. And one thing that you guys want to be careful with if you're doing this on your GMB body and you have the 8.5 inch axle, I'm not sure if they use these magnets on all the axles or just a limited slip or just the 8.5, but just looks very much like a transmission pan magnet, and it probably is. And I went to try to take it off and clean it up real good, but once I started cleaning and got a lot of the sludge and varnish off of here, I noticed this is actually permanently attached to the cover, so you want to be careful and not try to pry that off and break that seal in there. I got lucky. I started prying it with a screwdriver and it just felt a little bit too hard. I couldn't believe the magnet was that strong, and it really isn't. And come to find out, it's permanently attached. So you want to go ahead and leave it there, and that way it won't fall off and get all churned up in the gears and everything. This is not a very strong magnet at all. It's not like a speaker magnet or anything. It's good enough to catch debris, but it's not strong enough, I don't think, just to stick onto the differential cover and cope with the friction of the oil and everything without sliding off. So just be careful not to try to take that off and leave it where it's supposed to be with the original adhesive. And went over there with a brake cleaner and cleaned everything up. Now it's nice and shiny, completely free of all grease. And I'm going to try something a little bit different today. Usually I use RTV and just go around and put a nice thin bead on there. And then I got to bolt the cover on and basically let it sit for overnight, basically 12 hours. Then I can come along and retorque the bolts and add oil. I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead with this LubeLocker gasket. I'm not going to throw my RTV away, actually. I might still use that for other things. But I'm going to go ahead and give this technology a try. This looks like a very well made gasket. It looks like a metal gasket that you can see in there, laminated between two pieces of gasket material, probably a steel gasket. And then you've got 3 layers of this silicone seal here that kind of is raised off the surface that will hopefully compress down ever so slightly once this gasket is in place on the differential cover. Kind of just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and give this a try, see what kind of results I get, see if I have any leaks. And the advantage of this is going to be mainly I can go ahead and put this on here, tighten everything down, add oil, and go ahead and drive the car, which is really great. This gasket, they don't guarantee it, but this gasket is often reusable at least once or twice before you have to have a new one. They're not the cheapest gaskets in the world. They're about $22, $25, something like that. And they don't make them for every kind of axle. They just make them for the most popular axles, the Ford 8.8, the 10 1/4, and the GM 8.5. So I'm going to give this thing a shot. One thing I'm a little bit concerned about is the tightening torque here. They want you to go all the way up to 35 foot-pounds. The service manual recommends 22 foot-pounds on these bolts. These bolts are not flywheel bolts or head gasket bolts, so they're not really designed to be torqued down but so much. I'm going to basically kind of go in between the 22 and the 35 and just kind of go by feel, just to get a nice snug fit, and we'll see if we have any leaks there. I think just like with the RTV, getting these surfaces as clean and grease-free as possible and smooth will go a long way toward preventing the leaks. And the same can be said for under the car. Spent about 2 hours cleaning everything up, but because of the age of the car and the fact that this gear oil has never been changed, I went ahead and dumped a couple of cans of brake cleaner in here and cleaned everything up to the point where everything pretty much is like new. You can even see the bare cast iron housing. There's just very, very little sludge, especially on that bearing cap, which I scraped off before earlier in the video. It's clean as a whistle. Brake cleaner does a really good job because it's very aggressive with the grease, but it also doesn't leave any residue, unlike kerosene or something else that you might want to dump in there. You just want gear oil in there and nothing else. And let me change positions and go to the other side. It did a very thorough job. You can even see the original GM paint marks when they assembled this axle, as well as some of the numbers stamped into the ring gear, date code 1995. and this is a 96 Roadmaster, so that kind of makes sense. So everything is just really clean. You can see the bare metal. I've got a really good flush going there. There's not a lot of backlash. That's basically it. And you can really get to see just how these limited slip rear ends work. They're basically all the same. You can see that you've got, well, you can't really see, but basically what you have is several clutch packs right behind these side gears, these spider gears here, and these very powerful springs keeping pressure on those clutch packs. So when you turn the wheels, like I have off the ground here, both wheels will turn at the same time. Torque is being applied evenly to the left and the right sides, but when you want to go around a corner, it will cause one of these clutches to slip eventually against the springs and allow you to turn. And then when you go straight, the springs apply force up against the clutches and you get power to both wheels again. So having limited slip is really, really nice to have, especially in a car, because you never know, in the wintertime you might be on a little bit of ice, or in the summer when it's raining you might have one tire off the ground or slipping or something. You might want to, you'll get a lot more better traction with this kind of setup. They can be a little bit more delicate than an open differential because of the clutches in here. It's easy to burn them up if you do a lot of burnouts and stuff like that where you're applying maximum power. But overall, they tend to last a long time. So I'm going to go ahead and get the cover on here. I've already got the gasket surfaces all cleaned up as if I were going to use RTV. And we'll go ahead and start adding the gear oil. Well, she's all filled up and the drain plug is tight. You can see that little dimple where the magnet is, which I thought earlier was a dent by a rock or something. Everything looks to be nice and dry, so that LubeLocker gasket is working quite well. I'm going to go ahead and drive it around in a few minutes and thermal cycle it, get the axle nice and warm, let it cool down, and see if it's still holding. I got what I thought was the axle identification tag all cleaned up, but it just says use limited slip lube only. And that kind of brings up a good point. Let me get out from under the car here. I went ahead and used the Amsoil 7590 gear oil. You've seen me use it before. I've got the little hand pump that you keep pushing up and down, and it moves the gear oil into the axle cover. And this lubricant is good because it actually is compatible with most limited slip differentials without adding any of the limited slip additive. So I've used this lubricant several times with limited slip rear ends. I never had a problem with it. I never had to add any additive. But if I start to hear any clunking or grinding in the gears, I'll go ahead and add additive in there and cure that problem. It's not going to be a big deal. And there's the part number for the LubeLocker gasket if you have a GM 8.5 axle in your vehicle. It's a little bit on the expensive side, but definitely well worth it to save time. Time is money, and anything I can do to save time is definitely a good thing. And it's nice to know that I can change this lubricant again in the future and not have to spend about a good hour and a half actually scraping off all the gasket surfaces and run the risk of getting debris inside all the gears and all those kinds of things. So there you have it. That's a differential fluid change on a 96 Buick Roadmaster. I'm going to go ahead and test drive this thing and see how it performs.